So here we go. Dennis Lechartier, the Back in Black GTO. And by the way, you take a look at this car. They took a 69 GTO and made a fiberglass mold off of that car. I love this thing. By the way, it's got flames on it. And if you've got flames, you're good with me. So Dennis looking to get his winning combination back. Installs a Nitro Funny Car. Crew Chief Corey Lee, a guy. The cool thing about Corey Lee is not only has he driven the big show cars in the NHRA Mellow Yellow Drag Racing Series, but he's driven a number of nostalgia funny cars, and he has a very good grip on how these cars should work and run, and he's tuned a number of them over the years. I think there's a number of car owners that actually like to get Corey behind the butterflies of one of these cars again, but he seems quite content as a crew chief on Dennis's Back in Black GTO. So Corey bringing his driver into the stage beams, gives him the thumbs up and walks away. Baby out Lechartier top end. How about that, folks? 601, 237 miles an hour. Dennis was 396, a $188 at half track. He was one flat in 60-foot time. 601, 237. Black back. Boy, I can't even say that. Back in Black is back. So Brandon Welch for Grandpa Chuck Beal. You hear the substantial difference in the sound of this car. This is a big show car, as we like to refer to them on the NHRA Heritage Drag Racing Series. Be part of the NHRA Mellow Yellow Drag Racing Series in 2013. Brandon Welch. For Chuck Beal, his grandfather, and Chuck Beal, a wealth of experience, driver's seat of alcohol dragsters and alcohol funny cars over the years. I don't know, I asked my grandfather one time if we built a Nitro Funny Car and had no idea what I was talking about because that was about 50 years ago. So Brandon Welch, the Beal Racing Nitro Funny Car. How about that baby run out to half track? Brandon, .937 in 60-foot time. And I told you that big show car made some horsepower. 359, 194 to half track. It coast through at a 640 at 124. 359, 194 for Brandon to half track is, well, they're sneaking up on it. .937 in 60-foot time to the black cone just past the Christmas tree there is Jerry Cumry. Jerry will be part of Saturday Night Nitro with a great A-Fuel 4-car match race. Jerry Dennis Anderson's blown alcohol car. That's right, we've got 2 blown alcohol cars, 2 injected nitro cars. We're going to match them up. Alcohol against nitro. And my personal opinion, I'm going with alcohol. Yeah, well, I wasn't talking about racing. So Jerry, one of the prime-time players in this category, in the NHRA Heritage Drag Racing Series, currently sits number 2 in the points for the national championship. Time trial run means nothing. Runs it out there, clicks it off. Jerry was 103 and 60 foot time. Goes through at 771, 113, and yay fuel matchup later on tonight as part of Saturday Night Nitro. It's be a pretty good old deal there. There's a bunch of 640 and, well, not a whole bunch, but 4 640 and 650 cars are going to get together here and put on a show for you here at Saturday Night Nitro. And here we go. B-Gas Eliminator. B-Gas, the 860 index is going to come up, and Steve LaBarber going to slide right on in here and tell you all about these guys as part of the West Coast Hot Rod Association 2012 championship season.
Mike English on his way out to the car to get his bifocals so he can read the screen. Lee Davidson. You notice on the scoreboard, 860 is the number here in B-Gas. This is Index Racing. First one to go green and first one to cross the finish line without going faster than 860. Hey, guess what? That's your winner and moving into round number 2. We got Ron Doyle, Norwalk, that 28 Ford pickup, 565 cubic inches under the hood. And then the Roadster, Lee Davidson. 860, your number 7 qualifier with a 988. Your number 4 qualifier with an 865. Something wrong with Lee Davidson. Is Ron Doyle going to run it on down? Top end, it's going to be Ron Doyle, that 28 Ford truck, 910, just getting out of it. He was 125 at half track, got out of the throttle, coast through to 112 at the top end. So that should tell you he let it off. He had a lot of room at the finish line, and you don't want to take too much stripe. Jesse Wooten at 65 Malibu out of Visalia. Your number 2 qualifier, 860 with a 9. Dead on the dial with a 9 was Jesse Wooten, that chopped and slanted 65 Malibu. And Richard Duschel, Palmdale, the Firebird. Your number 9 qualifier with an 848. Duschel's crew guy wheeling him into the stage beams. Your number 2 and number 9 qualifier, Jesse Wooten, 860 with a 9 on the 860 index. See what he could do against Richard Duschel. Was a bit too fast with that 848 on the 860. So if he slowed it down, he could be a dangerous threat to Jesse. Clean and green top end. Jesse Wooten got there first and broke out by 2/10. He had the finish line by 2/10 and broke out by 0.02 of a second. So Jesse not going to be happy. That 65 Malibu is that starting line game from Richard may have played a factor in that. So 877, Duschel in that Camaro. Moving on. So you got Casey Truer, the 33 Willys out of Santa Maria. King Oil Tool sponsored 33 Willys, 565 cubic inches of big block. And the crummy one, Doug Crumlich out of Irvine. Mickey Thompson Tires sponsored 96 Corvette, 605 cubic inches of big block Chevrolet under the hood. Your number 10 qualifier and your number 1 qualifier. Doug Crumlich, no slouch to the later rounds. So it's a big time matchup here on round number 1 of B Gas. Crumlich is in, wasting no time. Casey moves in. There we go. Top end of the racetrack, win like gonna be Casey Truer, 862.1. Was 007 on the tree to Doug Crumlich's to 033. He goes 861.2 for the loss, so Doug Crumlich's night is done in both categories. Crumlich came a long way to losing first round, and I know he's not a happy camper. So we got Roger Stallnicker, a 65 Chevy Corvair, and yes, you heard me right. That is a Corvair. 434 cubic inch small block in the front end of that Corvair. Doesn't that thing just say Ralph Nader, I'm here? He's out of Bakersfield. And Tom Fowler, Paso Robles, King Oil Tool sponsored 70.5 Camaro. Beautiful car. Your number 5 and number 6 qualifier. Anybody's race. End of the racetrack, it's gonna be Roger Stallnicker. Look at that, dead on the dial with a 6. He had an 8,000 package. He was 002 on the tree and goes 860 with a 6 on an 860 index. Fowler, no slouch. He goes 029 on the tree and 864 on an 860 index. Margin of victory about 600. Advantage Stallnicker at the finish line. So the Corvair coming back to fight another round as we got Brandon Stallnicker, the son of Brandon's transmission, 63 Nova, 582 cubic inch big block Chevrolet, your number 3 qualifier, and my pal Wes Anderson, La Mirada, 65 Corvette. Your number 8 qualifier was 300 too fast with an 857 to get into that 860 qualifying field on the upside of it. But Brandon Stallnicker went 864.6. Wes Anderson, no stranger to the later rounds. It's anybody's drag race. Wes Anderson inching his way into that pre-stage bowl, but now that's lit, waiting for Brandon to get in. I was talking to Brandon this morning, and that car is just beautiful. Full tube chassis Nova, 63 Nova, Love the car. 582 cubic inches of big block Chevrolet and just a great stance. It's anybody's drag race. We'll find out who's got the advantage in just a second. Win line at the top end, it's going to be Wes Anderson. 865.5, 154 miles an hour. Stallnicker was 866.7. Margin of victory, 3/1000ths of a second. Again, 3/1000ths of a second, like 2 eyelashes and a thumbnail. At the finish line, advantage going to Wes Anderson. So Brandon, a Brandon's transmission, done in round 1 here in B Gas. And that's going to do it for round 1 of B Gas. Now we're getting into the heads-up stuff. Now the configuration changes. This is 8th mile racing. Real fast-paced. Stops a lot of catastrophic explosions at the big end of the track, so that in turn saves a lot of time cleaning up. So 8th mile drag race, got Gary Brandt, Brandt Racing Enterprises. Mike's Transmission sponsored 86 Mustang. Here in Outlaw. And Dan Hale out of Simi Valley, your number 15 qualifier, was 6:28 at 128 miles an hour. Your number 4 qualifier, almost a full second faster at 131 miles an hour, 540 something. So Dan Hale, Mechanics Wear sponsored 89 Mustang, and Gary Brandt. Brandt Racing Enterprises, Mike's Transmission sponsored Mustang. And Dan Hale goes in and lights both bulbs up. The wheels up and down twice like that Dan Hale Mustang's got hydraulics, and the win light going to Gary Brandt, 551. 126 miles an hour. He was 083 on the tree. Hale was 073. Top end of the racetrack, in and out of the throttle. 675 at 79 miles an hour, and Hale done in round 1 as Gary Brandt put him on the trailer. George Regazzi out of Orland, 68 Nova here in the Budweiser lane. Your number 1 qualifier with a 528, 142 miles an hour, and 660 feet. And we got Alan Gadsberry, Bakersfield, at 96 Mustang, your number 18 qualifier with a 716, having some traction problems. She only goes 107 miles an hour. So George, your number 1 qualifier out of Orland, the Budweiser side of the racetrack, at that 68 Nova. So this is Chris Alston's Chassis Works SE Gaskets Outlaw. What's going on with Alan's car on the starting line as he goes a 1 second reaction time. Not good. George goes 162. Not too great either, but he goes 526 at 142 miles an hour to move into round number 2. So Chris Alston Chassis Works and SE Gaskets Outlaw, 8.5 on the starting list. 8.5-inch tires under all this horsepower. Pretty impressive stuff. We got Mark Washington, Cypress, Field Motorsports sponsored 85 Mustang with a 591 Ford for power. And John McGovern out of Woodland, the 95 Chevy S10, 377 cubic inches, a small block with an 8.5-inch tire. Your number 3 and 16 qualifier. Mark Washington, your number 3 qualifier, currently the points leader, number 1 leader from 2011. Top end win line, Mark Washington, 535, 134 miles an hour in the 8th mile. McGovern, 634 at 110. So keeping things rolling here in Outlaw 8-5, presented by Chris Olson Chassis Works and SCE Gaskets. Got Toby Jackson, Santa Maria, 65 Chevy Nova, and Tom Dottie out of Lakewood, the 1990 Ford Mustang, your number 6 qualifier, went 554, 132 miles an hour, and your qualifying spot don't matter right now. It's first one to leave on the green and first one to get to that 660-foot mark is your winner. Exactly what I was saying. Doesn't matter who's got the better qualifying position because the number 13 just beat the number 6. 613, 114 miles an hour as Tom rolled the starting line beams, and that's an automatic loss. So Toby Jackson in that Nova, the automatic bump or nod into round number 1. So next up we got Cedric Washington and Chad McGee. Chad out of Southgate, the 88 Mustang here in the Budweiser side. And Cedric Washington out of Hawthorne, the 88 Mustang, 548 cubic inches of Chevrolet under the hood. Big old wheels. Top end wind light. Cedric, 534, 137 miles an hour, 6 flat for McGee at 120. Test. Check. All right, so next up we got Fed Tech Woodland 69 Camaro, your number 5 qualifier. Buick Skylark, your number 14 qualifier, and it's going to be Fed. 536, 134 miles an hour. For the win, your number 5 qualifier, putting out your number 14 qualifier. All right, so keeping the show running. Here in Outlaw 8-5, we got Kevin Watson and Jim DiMaggio. Jim, Castro Valley, the 71 Firebird here in the Budweiser lane, and Kevin Watson, your number 10 qualifier out of Westminster, that Ford Fairlane. Top end wind line going to be that Ford Fairlane, 575, 123 miles an hour, 577 for DiMaggio. So your number 10 qualifier takes out the number 9 qualifier, all won on reaction time. Adam Noyes and Ron Shaw. Ron Shaw is going to make the cut. Adam Noyes getting a single hit into round number 2. And he goes 597, 126 miles an hour. And that's funny. He qualified number 12 with a 597, 126 miles an hour. He went 597, 126 miles an hour right now. He shouldn't be heads up racing. He should be bracket racing. So Roger Rydell, Lancaster, 67 Chevelle, your number 7 qualifier, 548. Oh, we parked the Chevelle, running a Camaro. And Jeff Kyle and a San Martin, the 2000 Mustang, your number 4 qualifier with a 498, 158 miles an hour. Roger Rydell, Jeff Kyle, San Martin versus Lancaster, number 7 and number 4. It's anybody's drag race because you know what, Mike English? Anything could happen on a drag strip. And it usually does. Pre-stage bulbs are lit. Who's going to make the nod first? It's going to be Roger Rydell. Kyle's in right. There we go. Top end, it's going to be the Mustang. It didn't matter how much reaction time he didn't have advantage of. He goes 485 at 153 miles an hour. He qualified number 4 with a 498 and picked up a full 1/10 of a second plus. So Roger Rydell done here in round number 1 as Jeff Kyle moves on in that Mustang. And next up, primetime matchup, Jermaine Bodie, Fairfield, and Rich Hoyle, Palmdale, your number 2 and number 9 qualifier. Hoyle here in the Budweiser lane. The 63 Nova, one of the coolest cars out here in my book. What do you say, Mike English? How's that? And Rich Hoyle currently sitting on top of the doghouse. Your number 1 in points, Rich Hoyle. Roger Rydell was your number 2 in points. And he's done in round 1, so it's anybody's race as Rich Hoyle got a firmly planted lead by about 80 points. We're waiting on the top end to give them the go-ahead. We're going to slow one down there, I'm assuming. But hey, I want to thank everybody for coming out. Saturday Night Nitro here at Auto Club Famoso Raceway, presented by Budweiser. On behalf of myself, Mike English, the Bowser family, and all the great track crew and staff here at Auto Club Famoso Raceway, we appreciate you guys coming out to the 3rd and final installment of Saturday Night Nitro, presented by Budweiser. Be sure to get your event t-shirt. Also, check out the cool t-shirts they got down at the souvenir booth. And kids, do not forget your free Hot Wheel. Your free Hot Wheel. You got a little voucher when you walked in the door. I don't know how many of them are left, but first 1,000 kids get a free Hot Wheel. So be sure to collect it at the souvenir booth. While you're there, be sure to fill out that information to win a 2-night stay at Hooters Casino Hotel in Las Vegas. Also win 2 tickets to the NHRA Big O Tire Nationals at the Strip in Las Vegas, and 2 passes to the Napa Auto Parts VIP Suite to watch the drag race and hang out with Ron Capps and the other Napa drivers. So be sure to put your name in that ballot and pay attention to the Auto Club Famoso Raceway website to find out who won, and also contest details, all also available on the website. So Jermaine Bodie, Fairfield, and Rich Oil. Rich Oil backing up into the water box, get them tires wet, and going to do his burnout. Rich Oil, your number 2 qualifier, your number 9 qualifier, Jermaine Bodie. So battle the Shoebox Novas. Kind of ET you think Rich Oil's going to run Mike English? English says a 477, 154 miles an hour coming out of Rich Oil this pass. I'm going to say a 476. Just to one-up you, Mike. And Jermaine Bodie, a 714 in that number 9 spot. It's a long cry away here in that True 10-5 category. And I'm going to turn the mic over to Mike English here in True 10-5, where he thinks Rich Oil is going to go at 477. Take it away, Mike. So Rich Oil and Jermaine Bodie. Look at that fire coming out the flame of Jermaine Bodie's car, out the fender. And you know what, Rich Oil, 473. We were both wrong. Mike English, we were way off at 151 miles an hour. Jermaine was a 521. Far cry from that 714, but he picked up a bunch, but not good enough to get around Rich Oil in round number 1 of True 10-5. So we got Johnny Coleman out of Lakewood, the 69 Camaro, and Mike Orban, Santa Maria. Another one of those 68 Camaros, first generation Camaros, your number 6 and number 5 qualifiers. So if one of these drivers gets traction, that'll be Johnny Coleman spinning the tires and watching Mike Orban take that win line, 530, 140 miles an hour. 703 for Coleman, who made a hard move toward the center of the racetrack and backed out of it. So not worth the car, I'll just take the loss. So Mike Orban moving into round number 2. Norman Chang and Kelly Henry. So Kelly Henry not making the call as Norman in the Mustang going to get a free hit down Auto Club Famoso Raceway in the Budweiser lane. He was your number 3 qualifier. Kelly probably hurt something. He was your number 8 qualifier. So an automatic pass into round number 2 is Norman Chang in that Mustang. Top end, 491, 155 miles an hour for Norman Chang in the Mustang. That sounds like Al Jimenez. And that is Al Jimenez. 474, your number 1 qualifier, 160 miles an hour. And he's automatically got the bye in the next round, being that he's number 1 qualifier. That's just how the game works. 72 Chevy Camaro, 525 cubic inches of big block fun under the hood. He's doubled up now for the NMCA, won in both categories. Now he's coming out here, puts the number 1 light up and says, you know what? Round number 2, we'll see who's next to me, and I'll probably put them on the trailer too. So Al Jimenez, at 72 Camaro, 474, 160 miles an hour. 467, 161 miles an hour. And Mike, I don't think we should be guessing these ETs tonight, because we're way off. And I believe that's going to do it for that round of True 10-5.